Hey everybody, I'm Bede, aka the Terrible Australian, a super podcast, and welcome to the sorry the seventh edition of my 2014 MIFF video reviews. For this one, I will be talking about Xavier Dolan's new film Mommy, and as well as the documentary WEB Junkie. So let's get right into it. Now, first up is Mommy. In the near future, in a near future Quebec, Diane, Dolan regular, and Dorval is a trash-talking 50-something widow in stripper heels and spray-on jeans. Steve is her troubled teenage son, expelled from a care facility into her custody over his violent ADHD-fueled outbursts. While mother and son attempt to navigate their volatile relationship, they attract the attention of Kyla, a stammering, introverted neighbor who insists herself into the household and provides much needed support. I'm only just recently getting into Xavier Dolan's films. The very first film I saw of his was a couple of months ago, was a film called Lawrence Anyways, which I thought was terrific and was a very pleasant surprise. And I'm not going to lie, I'm absolutely jealous of this guy because he's already made, I think, about 4 or 5 films so far, like full-on major films that have been played all over the world and been in like the Cannes Film Festival and many other film festivals and whatnot. And he's only 25 years old. Man, I am jealous of this guy, and I'm nearly 30, and he's done so much with his life has accomplished so much with his life than I have in mine. So I'm a bit jealous of this guy at the moment, but there's a pretty good reason. This guy is a really fantastic director, and his latest film, Mommy, is no exception. I thought this was a really fantastic film, and I can definitely tell while I was watching this film with the audience that they were loving it as well. And I think it has a good chance of actually winning the People's Choice Award for Best Film. And I found and for good reason, it's just a fantastically well-crafted film. Xavier Dolan does a fantastic job with both his direction and script. Like, even though I've only seen 2 films of his, but you can definitely tell, I can definitely tell based on the 2 that I've seen that he has his own unique and interesting visual style. Like, if you watch any of his film, or any of his films, you can definitely tell, oh yeah, Xavier Dolan directed this one. It's also brilliantly well written as well, and the performances from the 3 leads, and Dorval, and the other 2 actors who play her son and her neighbor, I can't remember their names, and I feel bad about that because the neighbor character of Kyla, she was actually, the actress who played her was actually the lead in Lawrence Anyways, so she's back in this film and she does a great job. And also the son, the actor who plays the son, does a fantastic job as well, because his role sort of goes between a mixture of sort of uncomfortable sort of humor and also intensity, but it's really Anne Dorval who did such an amazing job with her performance. It's a brilliantly well-acted film, and he knows how to get great performances out of his actors, and also it looks spectacular. Even though it's a very small-budget film, but it looks like huge. And what's interesting, though, is that he shot it in the 4.3 aspect ratio, which of course is like, you know, the box kind of aspect ratio, and but it does sort of change aspect ratios during the course of the film at certain points, depending on sort of the mood of the scene and all that. But it's a really sort of compelling story as well, a character study as well, and it's also very funny, also very powerful and touching, and it's just a great film, and it's definitely one of my favourites from the festival this year. It's not without its faults, of course. Even though I love the soundtrack choices in this film, some of them were a bit on the nose in terms of their use. And also, I feel like the movie sort of it's sort of set in the near future, and it because at the beginning of the film there's sort of a scroll, but it's explaining why it's set in the future, because there's a sort of a, well, I don't want to give away because it's sort of a major part of the plot, but I don't feel like that aspect was utilized enough. Like, it could easily just been set today, and I'm not sure why it basically had to be sort of a futuristic type film. It didn't really, that aspect didn't really add too much to the film, but overall, great film. I highly recommended it, and it deserves all the praise that it's gotten so far from film festivals all over the world. And I can definitely see this as, depending on if this is Canada's choice, I could definitely see this as being a contender for Best Foreign Language Film next year at the Oscars. So if you haven't seen Mommy yet, definitely go check it out once it's released, and also check out Xavier Dolan's other films as well. And I think you'll be really surprised just how talented of a guy he is. And if I had to rate this film, I'd give it 4.5 out of 5. Now, on to the next film, which is the documentary Web Junkie. Again, I got the MIFF guide here, and what's this film about? I'll tell you. Daxing Boot Camp is one of 400 or so military-style web addiction treatment centers established in China since it became the first country to label the problem a clinical disorder. Its patients are primarily male or adolescent. Most don't know how they ended up in the camp, having been tricked or even drugged by their parents. With extraordinary access, Web Junkie takes us inside Daxing and to meet these free inmates during their months-long deprogramming stays. Their stories reflect a wider social phenomenon, a generational canyon between communist-era parents and authorities and the net-savvy consumerist children, the lonely products of one-child policy. Now, when I first read that synopsis for the first time, it pretty much hooked me right away, and I thought it was a really interesting idea and concept for a documentary, and one that I've never even heard about. I mean, a rehab center for people who are addicted to the internet. I mean, that alone is just worth checking out. And for the most part, the documentary is very well done, very captivating, and very eye-opening as well. We get into sort of the lives of some of these teenagers and find sort of their struggles trying to get over their addiction, and also find out why they're there. And some of it is funny, but also some of it is very sad and shocking as well. Like, for example, some of them would be on the internet for about 3 weeks straight without ever going to the toilet and never having to leave because they fear that something would happen or their game would get wrecked or something like that. And it's very troubling as well because, like, I use the internet myself all the time, but just not at the extent of these guys do in the film. And it's eye-opening, and it's very heartbreaking as well, because you can see why the parents are doing it as well, and it sort of shows both sides of that debate. I think to me the film is more of a fly-on-the-wall documentary. It doesn't really have, like, say, many interviews. We do have sort of certain teens in the film we do follow and their stories, but I would have loved to have seen, and this is, to me, is the major fault of the film, is that I kind of wish they delved more into that. Like, we had more interviews with those who created these rehab centers and why they're doing it, and why China believes that this why they class internet addiction as an actual mental disorder. There's a lot of things the film, it sort of hints at or delves into a bit, but not enough to make it, I guess, definitive documentary on it. But it's still an interesting film anyway. I definitely would recommend it, and like I said, it's a very eye-opening film in a lot of ways, and one I think it's worth checking out. And And I think a lot of you will be very surprised about it. But overall, I give this film about, if I had to rate this film, it would definitely be a 3.5 out of 5. So, yep, that's it for the 7th edition of my MIFF video reviews. Keep a lookout for the 8th edition, which will be a whole horror episode, which I'll be talking about the New Zealand horror comedy Housebound, and as well as the darkly comedic found footage horror film Creep. So keep a lookout for that one, and I'll see you guys later. See you everyone. Bye.